Think about this. For the last 100 years, buildings, transportation, energy, these were completely disparate industries. They did not care about each other. They were just different. Today, they're converging upon each other into one, broadly and increasingly known as the smart city movement. Let me tell you a little about why. Oh my, or not. All right, is there a plan B on the clicker here?
Can we change slides?
Oh, go in front of it?
It's not up there, get up there. We're working on that.
Anybody have an extra AA battery?
Where's Bluetooth when you need it?
Any help out, Jay, on that? Perfect. Voila. Aha, a miracle. He turned it on. Bravo! So here's what I want you to know. For most of human history, we've been agricultural, separated, living all over the planet. Today, 50% of the world's population, a higher number than ever before, is moving into cities, and they are becoming millennialized at an extraordinary rate. And we're seeing just the tip of the iceberg. Soon it'll be 60%, and our lifetimes over 70% of the global population living in cities. This changes everything. Huge challenges, huge opportunities, all at the same time. By the way, a number of you are like taking notes and taking pictures. Perfect. We live in a transparent age. If you want, anybody who gives me your card, I will give you the entire presentation on me. So give me your cards afterwards, and I'll give you the whole thing. Think about this. Through 1975, 3 megacities. Only 3 in the world. You know them. London, New York, Tokyo. Fast forward barely 45 years, and there's 22. And this number, there's already been a few new ones added, will double over the next quarter century. We're living in a completely and increasingly urbanized world. So what does this mean? Where are the opportunities? Our venture fund reviews about 1,100 companies a year, many of them in this very space. Here is what we are looking for with all the pattern recognitions we've gained. Number one, you should know every mayor on the planet thinks they are the greenest, smartest city mayor in the world. There's a competition. There is no other side of the argument. I literally was meeting with the mayor of Taipei, who sought me out, on Sandhill Road. I had no idea who this guy was. What he explained to me was interesting. He said, we have a big election in Taipei, huge city, and we've got the left and the right fighting each other for who's going to be the next mayor. And I said, great. Which side were you on, the left or the right? He said, I don't know, I'm a dentist. And I said, well, you won. Did you get the left or the right? He said, neither one. I got everybody under 40 years old. I'm elected to make this the greenest city in Asia. Asia is choking, and they elected me, and that is why I'm sitting in your office today. You never saw that before. It is a fundamental shift. So the big question is, where's the intelligence? The intelligence platform for cities lie. And we've looked at all sorts of street sensor companies and things that are attached to walls, drilled into buildings, and increasingly we're clear on one thing. A lot of the intelligence will be in light poles. It will be in light poles for 2 reasons. One, light poles are up and they're distributed throughout cities, so they've got the greatest line of sight. Second, they're plumbed for power. The minute we see a business plan and it says, well, it's just going to have batteries and, we'll just go out and replace them whenever they need it. Not happening in London, New York, San Francisco, mega cities. It needs to be up. It needs to be plumbed for power. If you're up, you usually have security so people aren't pulling it down, etc. This is what we are looking for. Next, what are the sensors going to provide? The short answer is, we don't care. Sensors are dirt cheap. They're commodities. Once you get the first one installed, it's easy to add everything else under the sun. The one thing I'd say to any of you who are entrepreneurs, start with things that are revenue centers like parking. Full stop here. Cities generally only optimize about 25 to 30% of their parking. It is an underutilized asset. mayor or city manager and say, I've got something you're going to love. What they're thinking, and all they're thinking is it an expense center or a revenue center? And the minute you say expense center, done, they're off to the next meeting. The minute you say revenue center, you are solving their problem. And smart parking solutions solve those issues. We have invested in a firm called Smart Clever City, which is already in 16 cities around the world and growing quickly. It does away with parking meters, it helps cities drive more revenue. But the key is it doesn't stop there. Because once you have the sensors and you're up, it is just a hot skip and a jump before you can attach security, increased traffic flow, and a host of other things, including air quality. Everything we believe will be monitored from these sensors and light bulbs. So this is what the menu looks like. This is what we're looking for. Smart energy, smart building, smart mobility. Every city is looking for this, followed by security, an increasing move towards recycling and waste, and a little bit on public infrastructure. I'll say a word about each one, and then fly on to some broader trends. The world of energy is changing faster than anyone understands. The cost of energy for the first time is starting to go down. Many utilities believe that there is a movement towards free electrons, that people will be providing energy at some point for nearly free. And there's a movement called the free electron movement, not started by Sierra Clubbers, left-wingers, or even Democrats, of which I'm one, started by utilities, because they know they have to innovate and change their business model before it is gone. You will see extraordinary amounts of energy automation, a major move towards electric vehicles, because utilities know their business model, as they have been known for a century, is dying. And unless they move quickly into these other areas, storage and this thing called blockchain, they will live no longer. Why? And again, anybody who wants, give me your card, I will give you this presentation. You must understand the top graph.
How much
Purple, cost of solar. Red, the cost of wind. Black, cost of baseline carbon fuels. And the simple summary here is, for the first time ever, solar is now being used to generate power 50% less money than coal. The coal industry is dead in America. Virtually everybody knows this, except for the inhabitants of 1600 Pennsylvania. Coal, electrical output in China, down 11% for the last 10 years in a row, and going down more quickly. Xi Jinping understands this. Chancellor Merkel understands this. Everybody understands this, except Washington, D.C. But it's changing quickly, because the laws of economics are what they are. The only thing that's ever been missing in this equation is power storage. It's been expensive to provide the batteries for the days where the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow. So here's what I want to tell you. For any of you who are MBAs, as I was, we all kind of know what's the cost of a barrel of oil, because oil has driven the economy. It's all changed. You all know the cost per barrel of oil is $70-ish. It's soon to be irrelevant, because in a world where power storage is used for the majority of energy that goes on the line, this will be the issue. For my life, cost per kilowatt hour, which is the new metric, used to be $2,000. Or $2,000 a kilowatt hour.
If you remember, we were only hearing this when it came up with
There's not much power storage of any sort. When I served on the board of Tesla, 2010, it had dropped dramatically from year to year. At this point, you can make a kick butt electric car for rich people that'll blow the doors off.
Remember when we tested it?
But that's about it.
You guys were seeing this preview.
So what everybody in the world is tracking is what's going on here. It's going down about 7 or 8% a year. It's good,
No.
but it's not transformational.
We tested one on the
But
other.
then something happens
That only came to
here
the house, but when we tested my computer,
and there.
the Zoom call.
Who knows what happened here? Why did the cost suddenly go down? Who knows?
That's correct.
Regenerative electronics.
No? Any other guesses? Bingo. Elon Musk. Gigafactory. We began planning it back there. A single building, 1.5 miles long, as large as the largest building in North America, the Boeing construction facility. And it increases, it provides a global glut of lithium-ion batteries, driving the cost to the floor. And by the way, the people who had owned this industry before, LG Chem and Panasonic and Sanyo, they weren't standing by. They've doubled and tripled their capacity as well, driving the costs down. It is not stopping. I was just with Volkswagen, and they said flat out, we were asleep at the wheel. This gives this gigafactory a cost advantage. The Tesla that we at Volkswagen don't have, we are going to build 5x the battery production that Tesla is. Anybody here think the cost is going up? We're living in a world of power storage, and that's going to change a lot of things we talk about. We are already moving toward a world of all electric vehicles. Let me just say flat out, all electric vehicles. We just got back from meeting with the major automakers in the world in Germany. Everyone said all electric, and right behind it, all autonomous. Where this is going, and Mary Barra just stood up at General Motors and said, Uber has done something that has transformed the world, because ultimately it doesn't care what the car looks like, or your 0 to 60, or how many inches of cubic displacement. What really matters globally is what is the cost to transport goods, services, or people 1 mile. What's the dollars per person per mile traveled? And damn Uber, they have driven it down to $2.50 per mile traveled. That is historic. And Mary Barra went on to say, in the future, our business model is no longer going to be selling cars through dealerships. The holy grail in the vehicle industry is who gets down to $1.50 per person mile traveled. And without a driver, they believe they can get there. That is the future of mobility. It's not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue or an American issue. That is where the globe is going. And whoever gets there first will be the winner. The big question is, who will own the vehicles of the future?
Yeah, I think this is it.
By the way, don't take my word for it. These countries have already said they will outlaw, ban internal combustion vehicles and diesel vehicles. And by the way, it started with Norway. I'm Norwegian. God bless us. But there are only 4.5 million of us, as my wife, who's Chinese, points out all the time. Who cares what Norway does? But India, 1.4 billion people. Outlaw. Germany, France, England, and now the world's 5th biggest economy about to weigh in, California. And it's the tip of the iceberg. And here's the punchline to all of it, folks. None of these things will matter. You won't be able to buy an internal combustion vehicle in 6 or 8 years. It's changing that quickly, and it all has to do with the cost of lithium-ion batteries. Buildings, the next place that's ripe for change. We're moving towards a world where buildings where our entire life have been dumb buildings. You walk in, there's wires in them for lights, and that is about it. And there's no intelligence. Today, every room in every building on the planet is becoming digitized. They're becoming smart buildings with sensors. And once again, where will the sensors reside? Our bet is up, where there's the greatest line of sight, and it's something that is already plugged for energy. The minute we hear an entrepreneur with some great new idea, and they say, and of course, everybody's going to want to get on a ladder and start drilling holes in the roof and putting batteries in. It's a short presentation. Things we believe will be in the lights with sensors on. This is what we think it will look like. An extraordinary number of things going on in the construction management realm, as well as the lighting as a service realm. Here's an issue people don't think about a lot, but it's big. The United States is not so affectionately referred to as the Saudi Arabia of garbage. The most consumerist people on the planet, pumping out arrays of garbage you can't imagine. And for the whole arc of human history, what did we do with all the garbage when we didn't like it anymore? We put it in a big pile and lit it on fire. Can't do that anymore. So for places like the U.S., and by the way, I don't know how many of you, I actually grew up in the Bay Area. When I was a kid, what did you do with your garbage? You put it in a truck. We drove it to Redwood City, and for $5 you could dump it in a big pile. It was awesome. And that closed in about 73. And for the next 10 years, we'd go over to Half Moon Bay. Who cares about those people? And then it was $15. It was awesome. Now, Lodi. 9 million people in the Bay Area. Think how many trucks. It's all schlepped out to the Central Valley because we like those people so much. Goes into big every day. Freeways, congested, landfills, moved around. That's over. But you can't light it on fire. What you can do is run it through a thermochemical process and turn municipal waste into renewable fuels, like ethanol. And you will see an increasing amount of that. And it's important, in particular, for places like China that will be dependent on oil for the next decade. Then we come to security. And when you think of security today, you think about ShotSpotter, which is one of our investments, a firm that went public, which we're excited about. One of the first, by the way, if you ever ask the question, what is the first smart city company to go public, it is likely to be this, where it detects within 10 feet where a gunshot has been fired. So not only can police who are understaffed get to the crime scene quickly, they can also get something more important. And if you're a cop, you care a lot about whether there is a single shot fired by perhaps a drunk person at night who's just firing their pistol into the air, or there are 7 gangbangers with automatic weapons. Because if it's the latter, you don't want to jump in the car and race off on your own. So ShotSpotter has become a huge success. But that's solving kind of an old world problem that will also go away as people move into cities, because there won't be so many guns around anymore when that happens either. The real part of security will be this issue of endpoint security, because there will be a proliferation of devices going into your cars, your home, your work. It'll all be guided by your smartphone. Some of them may be inserted into your children so you can keep track of them. But you're going to need endpoint security detection. And in simple terms, if you're a security officer, Pentagon or Target or the California DMV, you can protect that. You can spend a lot of money, you put it on big iron, and you can by and large protect the enterprise. But protecting the kernel and the CPU and all these tiny devices is not so easy. Expect to hear a lot about firms in the endpoint security protection area, because otherwise there is no enormous fleet of autonomous vehicles until we can do that. Firms like Cylance, Carbon Black, which just went public for over $1 billion, CrowdStrike, SentinelOne, these are the future growth areas that will move the global economy. Public infrastructure is huge. There's a great raging debate in the governor's race. Are you for the 50-year-old high-speed rail, or are you against the 50-year-old high-speed rail? I will tell you flat out, it does not make economic sense. The real issue should be, what does rail of the future look like? Is it the Hyperloop? It's certainly not what they were building in Japan in 1965. I'm certain of that. We need to re-envision what the infrastructure looks like in the future. By the way, global increasing drought conditions, huge in California, but in South Africa, they have literally run dry in the city of Cape Town. Get used to it. There'll be more recycling, but what you will see is municipal waste. If you're thinking, my God, does that mean we might be drinking water that people have peed in? Yes, get used to it. It's coming, and it is literally a factor of 5 or 10x cheaper than desalinization. Do not go home and bet the farm on desalinization. What the world is looking at is the cheapest solution to each one of these issues. That is why I talk so much about understanding the cost per kilowatt hour, the cost per generating a cubic square foot of water, etc. You will see sensors for traffic, you will see environmental sensors, and it will all largely be accessible by your smartphone. So let me just cover 3 of the trends that are changing everything, and then I'm going to throw it open to questions. The first trend is there's a new ethos. There's a new ethos in every business sector. In the old days, it's we're Kodak, we're on top, we've won, we're untouchable. Not so much. Ditto for Xerox. And the number of other industries that have fallen off is huge. By the way, my entire life, in the 10 largest market cap companies in the world, 6 oil companies, 3 auto companies, sometimes US Steel or GE carrying out the number 10 spot. Today, 8 tech companies. All the oil companies are gone except for Exxon hanging on. Not a car company in sight. Tesla coming up like a bullet. That tells you something. It's a whole new world. By the way, of those 8 tech companies, 5 are American, all on the West Coast. Nothing even close to New York, all on the West Coast. And 3 of them in China. Take a mental snapshot of that. The new ethos is, if you do not cannibalize yourself, someone else will. Remember that. Second, in every one of the business plans we see, over 1,100 a year, we see 3 themes that come up again and again and again. Internet of Things, IoT, and everything. Second, big data. Third is sharing economy. New technologies combined with new business models. I just have to tell you this one quick story. I was just talking to a good friend of mine who's been married 25 years. They renewed their wedding vows and went back to where they'd had their honeymoon in the Serengeti Plains of Africa. I said, wow, sounds cool. How was it? And they said, awesome. It was exactly like it was 25 years ago, except the Maasai warriors were standing out in the plains. She said, they're all holding smartphones. It's still a primitive way of life, but even in the middle of Africa, smartphones, IoT, have changed the world. And perhaps most powerfully, there's a completely new customer base. My whole life, global businesses, GM, IBM, Hewlett-Packard, they're focused on the baby boomer customer. The whole ethos is who can buy the biggest TV, the biggest car, the biggest house, and then throw it out and buy an even bigger one 2 years later. That's not. We're in a millennial world. It's about 3 things. Who can cut their carbon footprint and be a good steward of the planet? It's about having complete connectivity all the time. And it's about companies that serve a higher purpose. And that means bend over backwards to be Apple and Google and make sure you don't end up as the next Volkswagen. This is what customers are looking for. What we find is stunning buying patterns of people in Palo Alto look almost exactly like the buying patterns of millennials in Shenzhen, Ankara, Bogota, or any other part of the world. It is a stunning, positive transformation. So let me conclude with this. I know some of you have seen it before. What I love about this slide is, this is New York City, 1900, Fifth Avenue, Easter Day Parade. Everybody's out and everybody is in horse and buggy. If you look closely, there's one person, one, in a car. This belching thing goes about 2 miles an hour, and you know that everybody is thinking, who is that idiot? What is that thing? It smells. It's lurching. No one's going to buy them. Where are you going to go with it? 13 years later, barely over a decade, same city, same day, same street. It's all paved. All cars. One, horse, one, the remnant. There's always one. I just want to communicate, if the entire world can change that quickly, in 13 years, a century ago, think how much more quickly it will change today with the new technologies, the internet, and an increasingly millennial-dominated world not tethered to the past, but looking to the future. I want to challenge you to reshape that new world. If any of you are entrepreneurs, I will tell you flat out, there will never be a better time to be an entrepreneur. Bring your business plans to me, and I will help you change the world. Thank you.